Are there any questions, please, before we get started? All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about negotiation. And, there seem to be, there is really nothing about it in the text. It's information that is just, put together in the package. So what you have to do then, sometimes this is going to happen in your work at the firm. Somebody's going to give you something. You have to just give it your best try, though. You have to say to yourself that you're not going to be afraid to try. And just so some of it can be kind of foreign, like, what is this? What is, what? So, but just give it your best try. And then obviously we'll talk about it in class, and then we'll practice it a little bit more as we go along. So I am going to start with this first slide here, and that is in this negotiation process, we need to be asking all along, what does the client want? And first of all, the client wants to close the deal. Now, it was hard for me to get that across to Mr. Gibbons, that ski. The parties, at some point, you do realize in your transactions, and even with Ralph's deal, we are already past the negotiation stage. Okay, and so what our job at this point then, throughout the negotiation stage and through drafting the deal, is to, as much as possible, solve any and all problems so that the client can close the deal. The client wants to do this thing, whatever it is. Okay, and so our mindset has to be all the time that we're trying to do whatever we can to give the client what the client wants, to close the deal. And obviously the client is going to want the best deal possible. Okay, and so it is our responsibility to, use all leverage at our disposal to make sure that that happens. And also we want to make sure that we protect the client's interest and minimize risk, i.e. loss, i.e. loss of money or money. And so obviously, the client wants to pay as the least amount in money, or wants to have the least amount of loss as possible. And so in our negotiations, you must, again, at all times, this says lawyers in negotiations are problem solvers. I really can just strike out in negotiations are, because lawyers are in negotiation. Lawyers are problem solvers. We're always trying to solve a problem. That's what the mindset needs to be. How am I going to solve this problem? Okay? Problems, issues. Okay? And so the lawyer must also balance cooperation with the other counsel for the other party. This is how you're going to achieve the best deal. If you go in there and there's blood in the water, you will never get a deal done. Because in negotiations, even though each party is looking at the other with the side eye, there has to be some degree of trust involved for the deal to close. Okay? And so if you go in and it's already bad blood, it's going to be hard to close the deal. So you have to be collegial. Nice. Because you catch more flies with honey. Okay? At the same time, you cannot give up the store for your own client. Okay? You have to be all the time as nice and collegial as possible at the same time saying to myself, really, I'm, you know, we're friends, but I'm gonna, negotiate the best deal possible for my client. Okay. And at the end of the day, you want to close that deal, if at all possible. So if there's a way to solve that problem, if there's a way to get around that thing, and it's and it has to be legal. If there's a way to solve that problem, then you want to make sure that you do it. Okay? And so I am kind of getting past all of the different types of negotiating styles that were talked about in some of the materials that we had, and getting right to what I am telling you. I mean, just don't look at any of the other, because to be able to really get the deal done, you really have to have an interest, information-based type of negotiation style. Okay, where you are all the while knowing what the other party wants, what you want, so that you can leverage that to get the deal done. And you have to have a deep understanding of the client's goals and the resulting business issues. And by all means, you're trying to get to yes. Again, you're trying to close that deal. Okay. And so this is going to help us to be able to understand the interest of both parties. You want to focus on interest rather than the position of the parties. Okay, because there's going to be a situation where one party may have more power in the negotiation than the other. You want to get beyond that and then look to what are the interests of both parties. Okay. Don't automatically assume that because the position of one party may be of more power, or whatever the case may be, that there's not a place where there can be some negotiation. Okay? You have to get creative in some respects. You want to look to the other party's interest for a potential resolution, but you need to, when it's possible, or you have to hold fast on whatever your client goal is, then you need to hold fast on it. So you want to hold fast, you want to be flexible, but you need to be concrete. There may be some places where you got to hold fast. And then these are some of the ways that parties, some of the resources that parties use to negotiate deals in meetings, telephone, voicemail, letters, emails. Obviously, when there is a situation where insurance is involved, it's not my money, but my client is giving me authority. They'll say, oh, okay, you have $100,000. Okay. So obviously I want to make my client happy at the end of the day. I don't want to just go out and say, oh, here, you can have $100,000. No, my client is giving me $100,000. Eventually I want to go back to the client with something back. I want to say, hey, I was able to get that done for 25 grand. The client will still have their $75,000. That's a good result. If I go back, and I'm like, it depends on the facts. If there is complete, like if I'm talking about a civil situation, complete liability on my client's part, my client completely ran the red light. Not only does the police officer's report states that my client was the cause of accident, there is a witness, a third-party witness, who states that she saw my client run the light at a high rate of speed. I'm probably going to get closer to that $100,000, probably $75,000, depending on, there are a whole lot of different things that weigh into this. The plaintiff is probably going to have medical bills of somewhere around $30,000-$40,000. They may have some lost wages. So this is all factoring into the deal. If I have a situation where I have a plaintiff on a motorcycle and he goes to the ER doctor says to him, okay, well, your x-rays came back non-remarkable. Go see a orthopedic surgeon within 2 days. Well, a year later, he goes to see somebody who, and I get a bill back, but no report, nothing saying that the person ever went to see anybody really. Just a bill with one visit on it, doesn't really say what it was. The person is saying that he missed 2 months from work because he had surgery. I have no medical record that talks about a surgery. It's just a whole bunch of malarkey is what it is. But I'm not going to get on the phone and say, hey, dude, this is a bunch of malarkey. I'm going to be like, hey, can we work this out? And I'm going to say something like, oh, well, I noticed in your responses, but did your client, now what did your client have done? Because I didn't see any record. He knows there's no record because nothing was done. And so, I work it up and let him know that, hey, you have nothing to substantiate what you're saying are your client's injuries. You say your client missed work, but you have no record of any note from any doctor who ever told him that he could not return to work. The ER doctor let him go right on back right after the accident. In addition, all of his medical bills were paid by his insurance. So really his out-of-pocket was maybe $100 altogether. And so I'm not going to be going anywhere close to that $100,000 in that particular case. So even though I have that authority, it is my job to come out of the situation giving my client the best result possible. Okay. So you, in negotiating that deal, you want to prepare in writing. And I know when I say in writing in here, I say in writing about the business issues worksheet, we kind of like to type on it. But really, what I really mean is writing. Prepare in writing. Do you think my business issues worksheet just comes out the way it does on these screens? It never starts out that way. My business issues, now, this is not even my first draft. I'm still writing. Because that is how you have, there's some people that are writers, there's some people that are just not. But you really have to, when I say in writing, I really mean in writing. You need to have some active note-taking, writing down. That's the way that you can kind of get into the situation and really break it down. That's what I do. I write everything first. Then I go back and I type it so that it's nice and neat and legible. But I have to start out by writing that thing down. And so for your negotiation worksheets, I am wanting you to, start off by writing, your plan of action down by having written preparation for your negotiations. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about Ralph. Moving back over to little Ralph. And again, here are my business goals. And so, it's all nice and neat and laid out. But before it got to this point, the parties had to negotiate. Okay? And they're using their interest or information-based negotiations to develop that getting to yes negotiation style for Ralph's deal. And so here is my worksheet here, okay? And so I am going to start working on my worksheet. And I start with part 1 of that worksheet. It is a problem statement. It is not necessarily going to be a problem statement about one thing. It depends on what the client's business goals and resulting issues are. And so here for Ralph's deal, we're going to start off and we're going to talk about our problem statement for section 1 of our negotiation worksheet. And so I am asking for anybody to help me with this. What would our first problem statement be for this deal? Because everything has been given to us already on a silver platter for this particular deal, so we should know what our problems are that we need to solve. Yes, ma'am. Okay, all right. So now this is great. All right. So think about this. Now remember in the ski lift deal. All right. You remember how I kept saying, okay, what is my number one? What is my number one? This is how I kind of like to do all of my problems. Even in my my business issues worksheet in my recitals, I'm going step by step by step. Number 1 is always going to be my number 1. So think about it in those terms and double back around for Ralph's now and think about it for me and say, what would your number 1 problem that you need to solve is for Ralph? That's good. That's good. Let me go over here to my friend because she knows what my number 1 issue is always. What would you think my number 1 issue is? Monty. Monty. That's, I think about other things. My mind is always going to the Monty first. And so now think about that. Now tell me, what do you think now would you put first for Ralph's deal? First problem. Now that I've given you that clue. Absolutely. I'm probably going to go there first. Okay? This is how I want to try to organize. Now, I hope that is the one that I have there first. So, here, let's see. Ralph must negotiate with merchandise to obtain the highest possible. Yes, Monty. Because, see, I'm always thinking about direct deposit checks going into my bank account. I'm just always sitting back thinking, okay, now what's going in this Friday? What's going in this Friday? I'm always looking for who, what, when. What's going into my bank account? So I need to obtain the highest possible percent amount of royalty, and that means that I need to have an agreement on the definition of net sales, okay, that allows for the least amount of a deduction that's going to come out that will be associated with merchandisers, manufacturing, marketing, and selling. Okay? So I have to go into my negotiations ready. I can't just show up and be like, oh, here I am. I got to be ready to do battle. Because the other side is going to be ready. And I don't want to walk out of that bamboozled. So I have to think about what it is that I may have a number in mind. Okay? So I, may be going in there thinking 25%. And then we work our way down. Somehow we come out somewhere. I don't know what merchandisers is thinking. Merchandisers probably thinking 10%. Okay? So I got to have my eye on the money. Okay, now what's next that we can think about that would be important based on our business issues here in this particular scenario? Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. He's going to be concerned about that because he said that he's concerned about it. Okay? So Ralph LP must negotiate with merchandisers to obtain representation from merchandisers certifying the truthfulness, number one, of his financial statements. He needs to control that risk because he's relying on these financial statements to forecast merchandisers' financial strength to be able to carry out his obligations of marketing, manufacturing, and merchandising, and making those royalty payments. Okay. All right. So now that you have that, then what's next is closely related to that. You were starting to talk about that as well. So I'm going to stay with you. We got our financial statements on the front end, and then you also talked about right. And so what did we call that? What did he say he needed them to have? What was that word that we ended up having to define? Net worth. Right. Net worth. So Ralph LP must negotiate with merchandisers to obtain the promise from merchandisers that at each fiscal year during the term, merchandisers will maintain that net worth of $15 million or more. This is going to solidify merchandisers' financial strength throughout the term of the agreement. Okay, now what else? What else can you think of? Yes, sir.
Commercially reasonable efforts to market.
Yes. Now see, that's like ESP, like right there. That's like you reading my mind. He must negotiate with merchandisers to get their promise that they will ensure that during the term, merchandisers will use all possible commercial reasonable efforts. Okay. Now, in the beginning of the semester, somebody had a great idea, which was to maybe, define what that means. I'm going to leave it up to merchandisers at this point. But you may want to say, hey, you got to get out there and get on Facebook, or you got to do a commercial or a year, or you got to do this or that in your marketing. But whatever the case may be, that's how we're going to make our money. The more you sell, the more royalty I make. So I need you to promise that you will use all commercial reasonable efforts to do so, and that you're not just sitting back like chilling. Okay, what else do we have? Do we have anything else? So, Ms. Tabor, have we covered everything? Like what? You remember the one you were talking about in the beginning? Yes. Yes. See how that's important, okay? But it's important, you see what I'm saying? But when you rate it down, I got to get my money straight first. Okay, the term of the agreement definitely. Okay, wait, hold on. Before it, this will rate even well. This will rate even higher than that, actually. I mean, it piggybacks on that. As a matter of fact, you know what? I think I might put yours. I have this one here, but now that I think about it, I think yours probably goes ahead of this one. I was looking at them in order at that point once I got 4A. That one, goal 7, might go above the brand quality. It may go above 4B, maybe even. 4B here, that merchandisers, Ralph must obtain or negotiate with merchandisers to obtain the promise that after the term has ended, that merchandisers agrees that it does not have ownership of any of the merchandise. Because that's important, okay? The term is ended now. You can't have merchandisers selling some of the stuff on the side after the term is ended. You need to return all of the merchandise. We've talked about that, how that all is going to end up. And then the strict emphasis on the brand quality, I might even move that up. Because I feel like that would be even more important than 4B. Because the brand, the popularity of the brand is what makes the money. Okay? All right. Do we have any questions there? Then we want to talk about the specific goals of the parties. This is how you're able to have a snapshot, just a introductory look at, how you will leverage each party's expectations. And so, what would you say is Ralph LP's high expectation? We've talked about it. Ralph LP's high expectation. Yes, ma'am. Right. Right. And so the payment of the highest amount of royalty as possible. Then what would be next?
For merchandisers to sell as much product as possible.
Yeah. Yes. But higher than that, as far as Ralph is concerned, he's very concerned about the quality. So I will go ahead, when I'm thinking about his high expectations, money and quality, it seems. Obviously, the way that he's going to get that money is through the selling of the merchandise, but the quality, he is key about that quality. Okay. And then who are our target decision makers here? So I'm wanting you to go through this as much as possible because you're gonna have to do this on your own. So yes, ma'am.
I put all mine in just signatories, and then once we get signed,
Right. Yeah. So who is specifically?
on that agreement,
Uh huh. We didn't have any people, so it's
president
okay. But it's just for this one. It's just Ralph LP and merchandisers. I mean, we weren't given any specific information. These are our target decision makers. Okay. And so what is Ralph's bottom line gonna be then? What would his bottom line be? He has to have a bottom line, okay? Right now, we've settled at the 15%, okay? But you would go in having some type of a bottom line, you know? Drop dead amount that you would go with, okay? And then in my bottom line, I'm thinking for me, it doesn't. It's good to have that set 15%, but if you have by the end of the day so much money coming out from merchandisers cost, then it's for naught. So the net sales definition is critical here. So I want to go in with my drop dead amount on what that net sales definition would be. Okay. For me, I am wanting some people would definitely, I'm thinking merchandisers is definitely going to say some amount somewhere, maybe 15% deducted from gross sales. I'm thinking, 10% from gross royalties. And then I can think that I could work my way up if I need to negotiate that with merchandisers. And then on the maintaining at least $15 million each fiscal year during the term, that could be my bottom line there. I mean, because, yes, go ahead.
bottom line is like our non-negotiables,
Right.
it's just a walk away.
Well, yes. But we want to do what?
Do better than that.
We want to, what was that thing we said at the beginning? We want to, yes, we want to close the deal. We're getting to yes. Okay, so yes, we're visualizing, what our end mark is. Okay. But there may be some place with one or more of these where we can negotiate on this one to vary the cost on the other. So you want to have, your bottom lines all in a line. And that although Ralph will provide his reason for rejecting those samples in writing, that's a deal breaker. That's a bottom line. I don't know if he has to have that. Okay, that's bottom line. He has to approve those samples because, again, his high expectation is maintaining quality. So I'm having to, think about all of my bottom line issues. And then again, going to your earlier suggestion, talking about my bottom line as far as a term. Because me as Ralph LP, I'm probably going into this license deal thinking, I'll do a year. Why we gotta have 3 years? I mean, I just let me do a year. I go if you good, we come back for another year. But merchandise is probably gonna want a longer term. But in my mind, I'm not gonna go more than 3 years probably. So I want to think about what my bottom line is. And then you want to look at the relationship of the parties. Here, I want to say maybe friendly, positive, transactional. This is not one of those situations, like a settlement agreement where, things could be a little tense depending on what kind of case it is. Okay, so do I have any questions here? Then we're looking now at our interest, mine and theirs. Okay. So again, it may not be that much difference, but we still need to have a snapshot of what their interests are and what my interests are, because then that's how we leverage. Okay, so again, what are my interests? Again, is doing what? Yes, making the most money in this deal. While maintaining the highest brand quality and popularity. That's my interest here. What also could be one of my interests? Think about it. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes. At the same time, I don't know merchandisers that well. So what could also be one of my interests? Or to think about it. What if it turns out it's not great? Yes. One of my interests is I don't want to be locked in a long-term deal with the loser. I'm interested in that. I don't want to be locked in a long-term license with the party that does not have the financial strength. See, that's my interest. So I got to shore that up. I got to fix that problem. I got to make sure that I want to have this relationship. I got to make sure I want to build a relationship. And quite frankly, I don't want to be, just so cold about it. But if the money making ability is not there, there's no love for me. I don't want to have a relationship. I don't want to build a relationship if it turns out that the party does not have that financial strength. This will cause loss in my money-making ability and lost opportunity. And it will diminish the value or the popularity of my brand because it's not really out there in the marketplace for other people to love and for it to gain more popularity. So I gotta make sure that's all together before I move forward. And so I have to negotiate the deal in such a way as to make sure that the assurances are true in that regard. Now, what about merchandisers? What would merchandisers' goal be? Obviously, it's not going to be a surprise at this point. Merchandisers wants to do what? Make money. They want to make money too by using that Ralph trademark image. They want to make money, the most money possible, while keeping their costs low. What else? What else is Ralph? What else have we learned that merchandisers is interested in? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay. What are they interested in? So I'm always putting things. I'm going I'm going highest to lowest. So now after money, what are their? Because I've even given you a clue in here. Keeping costs low, keeping loss low. So after this money deal, what have we learned that merchandisers is one of their high interest in this deal? Yes, ma'am. Right. Sued. Why? What would the sue for? What reason? Right. Okay. So that's one of their interests. Not incurring loss or costs associated with claims from third parties, asserting an ownership in the Ralph trademark image. What else did they say they were interested in? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Making sure nobody else is selling within their territory.
Yes. Yes. And if that's happening, well, obviously that's going to bring loss, but it also could bring claims as well. Because if that person is selling in that territory, what is possibly occurring?
Ralph's being insured.
That's a quick way of saying it. But more in the extended way, Ralph is doing what? Well, okay, right. He's giving somebody else authority to do so. Yes. Okay. So that could cause, exposure for merchandisers as well if that is occurring. So that is loss. Okay. So these are things that we need to keep in mind when we are working on our negotiations worksheet. Okay. So now we're going to move down to number 4 now, because now we have some places where we can now, do some leveraging, some negotiating the deal. And so now, if there is no deal, what is Ralph's best alternative going to be here in this particular case? So now Ralph is thinking, okay, so I'm saying, okay, I'm probably at this point, we're probably not yet at that 15% royalty. He's probably coming in with something like 25%. So at this point, what would, if merchandise says, nah, that won't work for me, what then would Ralph do at that point? I'm not clear. I'm not making myself clear.
So this isn't like the deal's done.
Right. See? So you see what I'm saying? Like, it's done in your textbook, but I'm showing you how we got there.
No.
Yeah.
When you say if no deal, that doesn't mean that the parties are at the negotiating table and they said, forget it, we're not doing any deal later, it means that that proposal, there's no deal. There's
Right.
no deal to accept that.
Right. See, yeah. See, you're always finishing thing, but see what I'm trying to get you to do is we're still working it out on your paper. You're not even there yet at the meeting. You're saying to yourself on your paper, what if I say to him 25% and he says no? You need to be ready to know what you're going to come back with.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to figure out what no deal means.
Yeah,
Is it
well,
just no deal to that proposal or no deal, everything's done and it's off the table?
but that's why I'm trying to keep your mindset on the idea that we're always trying to do what?
Close.
We're always trying to close the deal, right? So that's what we're always working on the analysis of doing that. So this is how it's worded on this worksheet, okay, which could be a little confusing. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to work the deal out before you get there, so that you can be ready when the person comes, like there's something going to be on the other side. You don't want to be in negotiations completely shocked at every stage. You want to look like you have already done your interest-based analysis. You want to already be thinking, if this person comes with this outlandish thing, you're not going to be like, you won't want to be so disappointed. You want to be able to continue on negotiations, and you want to be able to say what you're going to do next. Okay? And so I am just giving you an example of because obviously my number one item is the money. So I'm starting there first. And I am saying to you that I'm sure Ralph did not come in with 15% all along. He probably came in with 25 or something.
No deal to 24%. That's my next best alternative.
Okay, and that's great. But guess what? You will be there all doggone day. And we have maybe like an hour or two. We don't have all day. And so right now, you're going to have situations where you will go to a mediation. And you're going to come in, and there's going to be a mediator there, okay? And he's going to be mediating the thing, and you're going to come in. This will not be on something like this. It will be like maybe on some type of a settlement agreement or something like that. And you're going to come in, and you're going to say, oh, I'll settle for $25,000. Then the other party says, okay, how about $100,000? Okay, when they come back to you, you're going to say 24? Oh, I'm just saying, I'm giving you an example of because you'll be there all day. Okay. You want to have your next number ready, whatever that would be. Okay. And so, yes, I have been to negotiations, mediations with people who do that. and the case never settles. And so you spent the whole day and you can't really get to yes. So and it's because the reason that is because the parties had not worked out what they would really do in the negotiation stage. Or they didn't have it all ready to the leveraging that they would use, how they would come back. They didn't have it ready. Okay? So you want to have it, you want to, prepare in writing. Okay? And so maybe whatever, the scenario is that is causing the friction, maybe you will opt for a slightly lower royalty percentage. Or you may opt for maybe a higher, maybe you would give merchandisers more, because for me, I'm already coming in and I'm saying, for your cost, I'm not going to do a situation where it'll be 15% of net sales meaning all of your cost. I'm wanting to start off by saying I'm really accepting nothing less than a flat fee amount, a flat percentage amount for cost that will be deducted. Okay. And so I am wanting to do 10%. That's really where I want to end up. But I could give merchandisers maybe, 15% for its cost. So that means for me though, for my definition being gross royalty though, not from merchandisers' gross sales. Because all the while I'm trying to come out of this with the highest amount possible that I can come out with. So I'm thinking about all of this as I go on. I maybe will opt for a slightly longer term. Maybe I started out with 1 year. Maybe, I'll go, 2. Maybe I'll take 2 years at a 20% royalty. This is how you move to that final place in the negotiations. You don't just end up there. It ended up in your book that way, but that's not how it works in real life. There's going to be some negotiation on those goals. That's how that ended up that way in your book. Maybe negotiate a lower amount of yearly net worth that merchandisers needs to have each year. And then, can I improve this? Yes, possibly vary the terms of the indemnification by maybe putting some type of a dollar amount limit on that. So there are places to leverage this deal. I'm thinking if there's a problem with merchandisers meeting the yearly net worth standard, or if there are some problems throughout the deal with that, maybe could some type of a trust account or maybe some type of escrow account help to guarantee funds. There are places to leverage throughout the deal. So for merchandisers, maybe offer a higher royalty percentage. Maybe I'm coming in at 25%, merchandisers is coming in at 10%, he's going to have to, I'm like, no, that's never going to work for me. Maybe he'll offer a lower flat amount deduction for his costs. So this is how we're leveraging the deal. And so then you want to determine who the leverage favors. It probably favors them both in this particular respect. Not maybe one more than the other. And then who has the most to lose from the deal? Overall, depending on how popular Ralph's is, it's probably merchandisers. Because if Ralph is very popular, there are going to be multiple people who will want to have that licensing law deal. And so if a merchandiser walks away, he'll walk away from a money-making opportunity. And can I affect their alternative or make their status quo worse? No. In my opinion, if Ralph has a high popularity will merchandisers will lose the money making opportunity.
Can you give an example of what would affect their alternative or lower their status quo?
Not in this particular case, not for Ralph.
So
Yeah.
I can't quite wrap my head around what you mean by lower their status quo. Because their status quo is just they're going to have.
He has no alternative in this particular case. Yeah. All right. So then we're going to move over to our section 5 of our worksheet. And so you want to build on the shared interest. You want to build your conflicting interest. And so all along, you want to be creative. These are your possible proposals. And so you want to, in my opinion, remind merchandisers of the popularity of the Ralph trademark image. Okay? Because that is going to, be a promising factor for all parties involved. So Ralph LP has many interested licensees, and merchandisers will lose this opportunity. And also what merchandisers needs to keep in mind is that they have this shared money-making interest. And so opting for low or no deductions from the gross royalties or use of the trust account to guarantee the cost of manufacturing will prevent both parties from making zero if there's no agreement. And also the more popular the Ralph's is, the more money both parties will make. And so any of those proposals that Ralph may have that may be more constraining on merchandisers than they would like, they need to think about the fact that that these are just quality assurance standards that Ralph has, which will make Ralph more popular. And the more popular Ralph's is, the easier it will be for merchandisers to market the caps and t-shirts. And so then we want to look at if any apply, the authoritative standards or norms. Okay, so we're here on part 7, I believe. Third party moves. Okay, so can I use a third party as leverage in this particular scenario? Yes.
Depending on how popular Ralph is, you could potentially save somebody else.
Absolutely. Excellent. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. Those are my third parties. Yes, I'm going to advise merchandisers that, hey, if you don't like this deal, I'm going to move on to the next. I have many potential people who are interested in my little Ralph because he's very popular. Okay. So in this particular situation, then yes, I may have. So you got to be thinking about this now. So this, your business issues worksheet, your negotiation worksheet, this all works for all different types of negotiations. And so you need to be thinking about all of these things as you go along in thinking about deals that you're working on, transaction 3, i.e. You want to think about, are there any third parties, audience, or coalition partners that you may use as third parties to leverage in the particular deal? Okay. Now, I'm going to go back to authoritative standards. And because there, seem to be a few questions about that, that is going to be for any type of deal, really. You want to think about whatever type of authoritative standards, it could be law in a particular jurisdiction or whatever it may be, that is going to possibly have some variance on the point of negotiation, whatever it may be. And so then you work your way down to your last section down here, which is your overall positioning and your theme for this agreement. And so all the while, I, or Ralph LP, must leverage that high popularity of Ralph's in order to negotiate the highest possible royalty with the least amount of deductions. And then again, I'm reminding merchandisers that the more popular the Ralph trademark image is, the more money that all parties will make. So Ralph must maintain that popularity by approving all samples. Also, due to the popularity, the license is in high demand. And in turn, that means that Ralph must vet the licensees before entering into these long-term license agreements to ensure that the licensees will have the financial strength necessary. And then you also want to remind merchandisers that these goals will also increase his overall money-making ability. Okay. And so then we want to then, at this point, after the negotiations, that is when you go into the drafting of the agreement, which we already know includes the 7 contract concepts, the 5 business issues, and our 10 contract sections. And again, I'm always using that business issues worksheet. We are mindful of the sections now that we have to work with because we've been working with them all semester. Okay? And so you want to start by setting up that format so that you don't have any missing. And now we're definitely not going to be going back through that step by step for each one, but we will look a little bit at the termination here for this particular event. And so again, we know where we go to look for those termination events, the business issues worksheet, representations and warranties, covenants. And then we need to continue to be mindful of the different types of terminations again. The neutral, friendly, unfriendly. And the effect of the consequences of notice. What will happen upon notice of the termination? And any opportunity there may be to cure the default or termination or breach. And so again, just as we looked at over in the ski lift deal, you want to just the same thing over and over and over again with your business issues worksheet. And so we're looking for termination events. I mean, I'm looking up at my top, at my 1A, and so Ralph LP will grant merchandisers a license for caps and t-shirts. Okay, so now I am saying to myself, okay, well, there's going to be possibly a termination or a default event unfriendly, and I'm going to go to refer to my goals 5 and 8 because those are really merchandisers. And so now with that worksheet, with our negotiation worksheet, now we have a worksheet for Ralph's. We went over Ralph's worksheet. Merchandisers has a worksheet, should have a worksheet. But that's not our client, okay? But you want to be mindful of what will be on merchandisers' worksheet, negotiation worksheet, if you were to represent that side of the deal. And so here in 1B, merchandisers will be obligated to market and merchandise the caps and t-shirts in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. And so by working my business issues worksheet, I mean, I can see, for me, being in the practice of law for many years, knowing where the liability is going to come in, I mean, I'm looking at this and I need to be able to negotiate the best deal possible. I can see that in this scenario, manufacture is just like delivery in the ski lift deal. Really, nothing can happen if a cap or a t-shirt is not manufactured. So I have to be mindful of that, and I'm making sure that that's included. I'm going to slip that into my subject matter performance provision as well, because it's critical to the deal that merchandisers has an obligation to cause in some kind of way the caps and t-shirts to be manufactured. And so I can see that now because I'm working my deal. And so what I know is that I'm always going to have a termination event that is going to be coming from my covenants, my representations and warranties. So I know I'm going to go over there and be able to see that there is going to be some type of termination or default if merchandisers does not manufacture, market, and sell the caps and t-shirts. If that's not happening, that should create an issue, an Endgame issue of some kind. Or there could possibly be a termination or default neutral if merchandisers does not manufacture, market, and sell, i.e. if there is some bankruptcy or death. Somebody asked in the last class, there was one word I could not figure out. Can you leave out a neutral termination event so that I never could figure this word, so that the blank party is liable no matter what? No. You can't leave out anything, because when you leave something out, that causes a lawsuit. The point of the agreement is to tell the parties what will happen in this event so that we don't have to have a separate lawsuit. So you want to forecast it. If there is some reason that this is not occurring because of, i.e., merchandisers has filed bankruptcy, I need to put it in writing. Because if I don't put it in writing, it's going to make it, I may end up having to file a lawsuit anyway. But if I put it in writing, once it's in writing, it's going to make the lawsuit go down quicker. Because I go to the judge and I be like, but judge, here it is right here. We agreed. I don't have to file a separate lawsuit in the bankruptcy court to challenge, because what will happen is when you file in bankruptcy, you're asking that this debt be discharged in bankruptcy. I don't have to then go, if I do, I may have to do it, but if I do have to file a lawsuit challenging the discharge, going to the bankruptcy court to say, hey, judge, don't discharge my debt. When you discharge the debts, exclude mine. This is why. Here's the agreement, judge. It makes it harder when you don't have it written into the agreement. If you don't have this debt written into the agreement, it's going to be discharged. Period. So, no, we cannot leave things out. So we got to have all of our different termination events. That we have the neutral for a reason. It could be that somebody died. Okay, well, if they died, then when we go to the probate court and the family members are trying to divvy up all the, okay, do all you need to do, but just make sure you pay me, Ralph LP, my royalty first in the probate. I have to have that event taken care of, and I need to know how it's going to be taken care of. So right now I have my event. Later on, I will have in my remedies and indemnities section how I'm going to link to that termination event. What's going to happen? What is the remedy? And so here we have, it doesn't all fit on one sheet. I want to make sure that any debt is listed as a primary security interest in any collections, probate, estate, bankruptcy, and that it is agreed by the party that this debt will not be dischargeable in bankruptcy. It's in writing, signed, sealed, and delivered by both parties now. So you can't go over when you get ready to say, okay, I lied about my financial strength and it's too much. Now I'm just going to go file bankruptcy. I'm going to meet you over there. I'm going to be there before you get there. Hi, judge. And so this is what you want to have set out. That's the point of having your Endgame provisions, because now we have an agreement. We might as well agree about everything. Or your non-walkaway remedy for this unfriendly event, giving the person the option to cure. You want to say, okay, it could be 30 days or 10 days. Here, it's money, so I don't want to put too much time on it. So I'll give them 10 days to cure. Or then here for number 2, Ralph LP wants the contract to reflect his reliance on the financial statements. Well, termination event. Obviously, I'm going to those representations and warranties. You represented a representation and warranty that the financial statements were true when made. If they're not, that's going to create a default of some kind. But what if I find out and, oh goodness, we're making all kinds of money? I need to know what I'm going to do in that regard. Okay? I'm not going to look the other way. You still want to put the person on notice. Okay, and this may give you an opportunity. I don't know. There could be some kind of penalty, or you want to make sure that the statements are not true. We're making a lot of money right now, but maybe I want to have some kind of assurance